Alright, so don't worry guys, I'm not going to make you wait to the end to see what this thing looks like. I'm just going to remind you of what it looked like before. Pretty ugly. And then show you what it looks like now. Ta-da! I think it came out pretty sharp. The windows are still a little bit big, but that's the only way in and out, so that seems to make sense to me. I got the tires pretty even for the front and the rear, where they're just out a little bit from the fenders. I followed all the kind of natural body lines of the fiberglass and gave it kind of a faux rear window there. And here's how it looks like from the back. Very Bronco-ish. And now, let me show you how I did it. Alright, check this out. I think it looks a lot sharper. So a huge thing is that tube right here. The fact that it's up against it just makes it look a lot nicer. And then getting rid of that goofy scoop up in the front. And then the tires starting to fill out the wheel well. I think it's just awesome. So I'm getting really close. I still don't know exactly how I'm going to put it all together. I think I'm going to end up doing a little bit more metal work than I was anticipating. The last time that I really did extensive fiberglass work was a few years ago, and in that time I've become a lot better with my metal work. So I think I am going to integrate more metal work into it, especially when I do that rear section. But I will save some of the fiberglass at least. Don't know exactly how I'm going to fix this area up here, but it's coming along. Alright, so I'm getting ready to bend the tube for the back section here to turn it into a station wagon. And I've got my tape measure set up to kind of get an idea of how it's going to look. And then I've got my tube bender all set up over here. And then I've got the tubes all marked out. And every single time I go to bend tube, I always forget all of the measurements, like how far the curves are from each direction. But luckily, I haven't painted the frame of this thing yet, so I was able to see some of the original markings that I had, like right here, and then I was able to tell that it's 11 inches to get the full circumference of the 90-degree bend, and then I can reminds me exactly like how many inches it is to the center of a bend, stuff like that. So should be pretty quick, so let's get it bent. Alright, this is how it's looking right now. I need to change a few things. I'm going to have to move the whole thing forward a few inches so that I still have the bumper back here. And then I'm going to have to put a kink in right about here so that it bends forward a little bit so that it looks closer to a Bronco. That's the look I'm going with. Otherwise, it'd be just ridiculous back here. Alright guys, this is how it's looking right now. Got it angled in just a little bit, and then from this angle back here you can see I had it bowed in just a little bit at the bottom. Did a couple nice little bends there. I think it's looking pretty sharp. This dimension here is about an inch narrower than the middle frame. I didn't want to do it too far because I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do the sides or the sheet metal here, which will look kind of like a window. So I wanted to make it about the same but just a little bit narrower. So I'm just kind of going with the flow. We'll kind of just see what we end up with together here. Alright, this is how it's looking right now. I've got a piece of 1/2-inch square tubing up there to kind of start the birdcage construction that I'm thinking of. And I don't really know how I'm going to describe this, so I'm just going to show you this is how it looks now, and then in a second it'll look totally different. Alright, so check this out. I've got the fender just about where I want it. You can see how the rear tire relates to the front tire with the fender sticking out. I think they look fantastic, but I am having a little bit of an issue here. Let me see if I can explain it. Now, when you saw me cut this fender out, I used a piece of rolled square tubing that was perfectly circular. I knew that this might be an issue because the fender is more of like an oval with these slightly squared edges. And so I was thinking about cutting it in the shape of the fender flare a little bit more tightly, but I wanted to start with a piece of perfectly rolled steel in case it looked good, but I don't think it does. I think that the fender, you see on the top here where I marked this line follows the fender a lot tighter. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off the portions to make it follow the actual cutout a little bit tighter, and then I'll bolt that onto the body when I put it on. But there's no harm in cutting a little bit wide for the first time, and I kind of knew this was a possibility, but I'm just gonna have to bite the bullet and fix it. But it's getting close. All right, the back end is pretty much framed up with the Birdcage. So I've got this 1/2-inch square tubing there, the square tubing all the way around here, and then I just did a square tubing on the bottom there, and then again connected to this round tube right here. So that's going to finish off this rear section. As far as the Birdcage goes, in the front, I've got some orange string tied up, and that is going to mimic where all my bends will be. And it's a little bit hard to describe, but basically I'm just going to put a whole bunch of bends in it so that it matches from this rear section up to the front section and integrates into those little scoops that I got there. So that's what I'm doing next. So I like the way that it looks right now, but I feel like this vent here that's kind of like a scoop, I feel like it's, I followed the line up in the front, but I feel like it's a little bit just too big over here. So I've marked it in red. I'm going to rebend this and see if I can get a little closer. All right, here's how that's looking right now. I've got it just clamped up temporarily. I think it looks really sharp. You know, there's some little imperfections and I was starting to spend time on it, but I'm realizing that the whole vehicle that I started with was $635. So this thing is just spare parts, cheap budget. So I'm not gonna get too crazy with it because I just don't have the time. This little section up here, I haven't exactly figured out what I'm going to do with it. It was too complicated to try to put a second bend in, so I decided I'm just going to weld it all in, and then I'll probably chop away a little bit here and just kind of, you know, fold it back and make it look as good as possible. But that was the only spot that was going to be kind of annoying to integrate, so I'll just kind of deal with that on its own. But we'll get this thing put together as quickly as possible. Alright, now before I leave you wonderful people, I want to show you that I've got the taillights switched out. This is the style that I'm going with now, instead of those round ones that were right there. I think they look pretty sharp and you'll be able to see them from the side, which makes a little bit more sense to me. And I want to show you that I finished the passenger side. So, this is how it's looking. Obviously, I just did it the same as the driver's side, but came out pretty sharp. Hopefully you guys like it. I like it. It's still not perfect, but hey, it's a $4,000 trophy truck. What do you expect? So, see you guys next week.